The Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Super Conference is coming to Dallas, Texas, February 16, 17, and 18 in 2018. If you know of a better way to get the latest insider knowledge about crypto, to hear directly from the top minds in this field, to interact personally with 800 fellow crypto lovers, hodlers, investors, miners, traders, developers, and founders, then I'd like to hear about it. If you don't, then you don't want to miss out. Register today for the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Super Conference. Go to bitcoinsuperconference.com and register today as a super early bird to get the lowest rates on tickets and hotel rooms. That's bitcoinsuperconference.com.
Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost Here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with Future Tech Podcast. My guest today is Raphael Mazet, CEO of Alice. Raphael, how are you doing?
Doing really well. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so tell me, what does Alice do? What's the company about? It sounds like from Resident Evil, the evil computer that ran everything, but I'm sure your implementation is different.
That's the first time I've heard that one. Actually, the name comes from the Alice and Bob. You know how Alice is always giving money to Bob?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we're all about giving, and our first application is a donation platform, so that's where it came from.
Whenever people talk about cryptography, they always use Alice and Bob, so I get the reference, but I just want to make sure our listeners do. So that's cool. Okay. So tell me about this program.
So we started off as a donation platform, and the idea is that donors can see exactly what impact their money makes when they give to a social cause. The idea really came from a previous startup that Areti and I, so we're three co-founders, Areti and Jacob, who's our CTO. So Areti and I were working on another charity tech startup that was all about advocacy, online advocacy, helping people do more than just sign a petition or like a Facebook page. But what we realized, so part of the business model was that people would donate as well as taking action. But the donations just worked a lot less well than the action taking, which was a bummer because that was our business model, as I said. So we started looking into why that was, and what we realized is that because there are a lot of people who just either have lost trust in the charity sector or just want to know more about how their money is actually making an impact. And so we started looking into solutions to actually help them track that. And blockchain technology and smart contracts just seemed obvious at the time. This was already back in 2015, end of 2015. And so we started working on that. So the way that it works is when you give to a social organization, your money actually gets held in escrow, so it gets frozen. And it's only when the proof that the charity has done what it was supposed to do, that there is that proof, and that triggers the payment of the donations to the charity. So basically, when they set up an appeal on the current platform, they have to specify a number of goals that they're going to achieve. So if you look at the pilot that we're running now, it's to help 15 rough sleepers in London. It's run by St. Mungo's, which is a UK-based homelessness charity. They have a bunch of goals that they're trying to achieve, so helping people find either a temporary home or a permanent home, helping them with their mental health issues, helping them with their substance abuse issues if they have any. And it's only when they achieve those goals that the donations get made.
All right, well, let's contrast this. Tell me what you know about the quote-unquote regular charity industry. What percentage on average of people's donations, and I know it depends on the charity, but on average, what percentage get actually given to the beneficiaries, and what's the process? I send money to, kids with no legs. What happens to the money normally if it doesn't go into escrow?
Well, First of all, I'd say that we really don't look at the effectiveness of charities in terms of how much money goes to the beneficiary. It's not, in my view, that kind of thinking is actually quite toxic because it's not always a question of giving money to the end beneficiary. So if you look at the pilot that we have on the platform right now, it's all about helping homeless people, rough sleepers. Now, you could just give that money to them on the streets when you walk by them, and hopefully that will help them out, and they can maybe find somewhere to sleep or something. But the reality is that if you just did that, if that worked, then there probably wouldn't be any homelessness anymore, because there are a lot of people who just give to people who are sleeping rough. And the pilot that we have right now, actually no money goes to the beneficiaries at all. So no money gets to the rough sleepers. All of the money goes to the charity itself, to the key workers who are working day in, day out with the rough sleepers. So there are lots of services available to rough sleepers, but the ones that are in the program are people who have been on the streets for more than a year, people who have really, really heavy issues, either mental health issues or physical issues or substance abuse issues, and they need the additional sort of one-to-one personal help from these key workers to help them navigate a world that's probably become very confusing for them. So for them, getting a flat, getting a permanent accommodation is really difficult because they wouldn't even know where to start. So the guys at St. Mungo's help them through the process, help them get the benefits that they're entitled to. They help them negotiate the rental agreements. They help them sign up for them. They vouch for them, et cetera, et cetera. But no money actually goes to the rough sleepers themselves. So in that
you
sense,
found what you think is a better model. Instead of giving them money, which doesn't seem to help, you're providing a service to them, like giving them a place to live or other stuff like that.
Yeah, it really depends on what the project is, right? So in this case, it's helping rough sleepers find accommodation. In other cases, it might be cleaning up a river. In other cases, it might be, we have a couple of appeals that are coming up to help kids in difficult environments. And it's really all about the impact. So obviously, it's a concern if the CEO of a charity is earning hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds or dollars, and you might think that that's just abusive. But actually, when you really get down to the details, nobody really cares how much the CEO is getting paid or how much the key workers are getting paid. What they want to know is whether their money is actually solving a social issue. And where we hope that we can bridge the two, so basically showing people what impact their money makes, but also making sure that it's good value for money, is with the network effect. So the more projects you'll have on the platform, the easier it will be to compare those projects. And if you have the choice between two projects that have a really great track record helping whoever they're helping, rough sleepers, for example, but one is way cheaper than the other in terms of how it gets there, then it's fairly obvious that if you're conscious about how your money is spent, you're going to give your money to the one that is obviously more effective from a financial perspective. And that actually is the basis for the expanded vision that we have for Alice that goes beyond donations and focuses really on impact data, performance data, and the ability to benchmark and compare projects amongst themselves.
So are you involved with projects only for the homeless, or are you involved with other kinds of projects?
No, so it's the platform is open to any project. It just so happens that the first pilot that we're doing is with St. Mungo's, and it's working on homelessness. As I said, there are quite a few more appeals that are going to be launched in the next few months that are going to be focusing on all kinds of social and environmental issues.
Yeah, what are some of the ones that you're going to be launching in the next 6 to 12 months?
So as I said, I can't really talk about the specifics yet because they're not public. But there's one that is helping kids who are on the verge of becoming homeless themselves in London. a very similar one that's going to be in the north of England. We're discussing now an appeal with a charity in South Africa that would help replant trees in zones where they've been cut down, and helping the local community green their environment again. And that one's interesting because it would be validated, or what would trigger the payments would be chips that are put directly in the trees that would automatically trigger payments if they're still there after a given amount of time. There are others that are funding support lines, mental health support lines, that are plugged directly into the phone banks of the charities, so donors know exactly how many people they've helped. There are just many different use cases that are going to be coming through.
So what are some examples of charity efforts you've seen that have flopped versus ones that have succeeded, and why?
You mean in general terms, or in terms of what's been going on Alice?
Well, what learnings have you gotten? So, all I've seen is, give money to Group A, give money to Group B. But you said that's not as effective as some of the methods you're talking about. So I just wonder how many examples you've seen and why you guys are smart enough to tie donations to results instead of just to handouts. So I wanted some of your insights there.
Yeah, of course. Well, the main starting point that we have is that trust in the charity sector has basically collapsed in the last few years. It's something that's true in the UK, it's true in the US, in Canada, in all around Europe. There's just this general cynicism around the charity sector. It's not helped by the fact, I know the UK environment much better than anywhere else, obviously because we're based here and that's where we're starting to work from. But there have been several charity blow-ups, really high-profile ones in the UK, where charities have just collapsed because they ran out of money, because they were mismanaging the money. There are always lots of criticism around how foreign aid is used. There's outpourings of solidarity when there's something like a hurricane that happens in the Caribbean. But then you found out later that actually a lot of that money is stuck somewhere, that it hasn't actually been used for what it's supposed to be used. Everybody's seen on billboards or on adverts on TV that just sending $5 or £5 to X charity could help buy, I don't know, nets to prevent diseases that are transmitted by mosquitoes, for example. But the operative word there is always it could buy nets, meaning that you're not sure whether it will buy nets. Right. So tying the donations to impact, and crucially, making sure that the impact is independently verified, means that we can start reversing the trend in terms of the lack of trust or the declining trust in the charity sector, and hopefully we can start identifying the projects that really are effective at dealing with the problems that they're tackling, And what we really want to do is just help charities build a track record of how well they're doing. The funding on Alice is, by its very nature, it's unlimited. So it's not like a typical crowdfunding site where you have a specific target. We need to raise, I don't know, $10,000, and then that'll be that. And we'll update you after that if and when we have time to do so. On Alice, it's very different. You can fundraise indefinitely. I mean, if you are helping, if you start off by helping 15 rough sleepers and it works, then you can go on to help 20, 100, 200 until there are no more rough sleepers because the program has been so effective. And every step of the way, you are telling donors exactly what their money has achieved in terms of impact.
How do you monetize this so that you can hire people to get this stuff done and help the rough sleepers? It takes work to do this. So How do you split out someone's donation into the effort versus the administrative cost?
Right. So that's a really, really interesting question. first, so there's a business model for Alice, right? And then there are just the running costs for the charities themselves. So for the charities, they need to specify more or less how they're going to spend their money. But in essence, we give them free range. So at the beginning of a project, they will specify which outcomes they want to achieve, which goals they want to achieve. They'll also specify how much money they will get from the pot of donations if they achieve those outcomes. And then from there, whenever those goals have been verified and validated, then they will get the corresponding amount of money from the donation. So how they split then the costs is entirely up to them. We give them a lot of freedom in terms of how they want to do that. And as I said, really what we want to get to is when you have similar projects that are appealing for the same donations, essentially, then you will see some that are really successful but cost a little bit less, which obviously means that they are being managed more effectively, and we will make that blatantly obvious to the donors. Now, in terms of the Alice business model itself, right now we have a business model where we take a small percentage of the donations as a fee when they are paid out to the charities. So on success, essentially. But we don't really like that business model. We want to phase it out eventually. We want all the money to go to the charities themselves. It's just something that we have to do at the moment to generate some revenue. But where we are going to the other routes the other ways we're going to monetize this is essentially has to do with access to the performance data, and we are creating also an impact investment application that plugs into the platform. So we're going to, there are a lot of impact investors, there are lots of a lot of trusts and foundations that need to be able to access the data from other projects to compare what they're about to fund, right? So it's really important for them that when they're doing their due diligence, that they can compare and benchmark projects against each other. And so every time that they will need that information, that they want to go and do their due diligence, or they want to help design a project and they want to see what else has been done in the space and what has been successful, what hasn't been successful, every time they access that data through the Alice platform, they'll make some kind of micro payment that will give them access to that information. Part of that is going to be used to maintain the network, and part of that is actually going to be shared with the charities that generated that data in the first place. But then also we're going to open up the platform to impact investors. So these are different types of funders who expect a return on their investment. So they will typically fund social enterprises rather than charities, and they will typically give them a loan to carry out whatever social project they're doing, and then they will expect to have that loan paid back with interest, which is generally below market rates. But for them, so we want to monetize that and have them pay for the investments rather than the donors. And the really cool thing is that we can put all of those elements together and allow charities and social enterprises to tap into different pots of money while also reaping the rewards of being transparent. If that makes sense.
And all right. I mean, I should have asked at the beginning, but what's your background? Why do you work in the charity space, and what about your co-founders? Why do you guys choose to work in this area?
Well, so me personally, I used to work on the dark side. I think you can call it that safely. I used to work in corporate communications and government relations, so I was a lobbyist basically. And the work that I was doing was just helping generally big multinationals to communicate communicate their financial results, or communicate whatever their sustainability projects, or help them shape the the legal and regulatory environment in the countries that they were operating in. So a lot of contact with politicians, government decision makers, etc., etc. But what I really enjoyed about that job, so first of all, sometimes you have projects that are really not inspiring. I mean, there are some sectors where you don't really want to touch, but you have to because it pays for the bills. But the projects that I really enjoyed were the ones that were genuinely making an impact, where we were building alliances between these big corporations and patient groups, for example, or consumer groups, or advocacy groups, and basically building these coalitions to make good stuff happen. And a typical example would be when I was in Brazil, we'd help big pharma companies, get their medicine onto the local national health service, so that it would be free for the people who need it. And often this medication was just not available, was life-saving, but Brazilians couldn't get access to it. So working with the patient associations, those people who were actually suffering from the disease and needed it most, and putting pressure on the government, negotiating with the government, etc., to get them on is something that felt really good. And I wanted to basically focus on that rather than all the rest, which is why I set up this first startup that was all about online advocacy with Areti. Areti, she's been working in startup land for as long as I can remember. We met in our master's degree in university in London more than 10 years ago. And Jacob, he's just a really thoughtful donor. He's like a thoughtful philanthropist. He's one of those people who will spend hours researching charities before he gives donations, and was just getting really frustrated about how long it was taking and how opaque the information was. So he was really, really interested in how we could make that simpler, reduce the cost for charities in terms of like reporting their impact, and showing donors exactly what their money is achieving.
All right, well, very good. So, we're going to wrap up soon. What's happening with you guys for the next 6 to 12 months? The homeless project, the rough sleepers, as you call them, is what stage is that at, and what other projects are coming potentially?
Yeah, so we have. So in terms of the current donation platform, there are quite a few more appeals that are going to come online. And as I said, I can't really talk about the specifics just because they're not public yet. But we're going to launch quite a few more projects on the platform that people will be able to donate to. But also what we're going to focus on more and more are these two other pillars of the network. So the actual impact management application that allows people to identify, access the performance data in a much more granular way of different projects. That allows funders to compare projects amongst each other. There's an open ID element to that allows charities and social enterprises to collaborate also in terms of the beneficiaries that they're helping. So making sure that they know when they're helping the same people, but with like some really strong data protection protocols in there. So selected disclosure protocols and encryption on all that sensitive data. And the other one is the impact investment application, which is going to be the third pillar. That's going to be really cool because it plugs in and it can be combined with the donation platform, and it also allows us to build a secondary market where impact investments can actually be traded to secondary investors who have complete transparency on the track record of the project. So we're going to focus on all of those things.
Well, very good. All right. So how can people that are potential donors and other people connect with you?
Right. So we would love to get feedback from anyone who's interested in helping us. We're going to be publishing actually our white paper in the next few weeks. and we'll be announcing that, and we're looking forward to people just delving into that and letting us know what they think. So we have the best way at the moment to get in touch with us is by joining our newsletter, and you can do that by going onto the website, alice.si. SI stands for Social Impact. And we haven't actually really opened our Slack channel yet, just because of all the issues that have been around Slack. So we're probably going to migrate to something else. But basically, the best solution is sign up to the newsletter, follow us on Twitter. So it's @Alice_SI_, and we'll take it from there.
Raphael, that's great. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. Thanks so much.
No, thanks a lot for having me. It's been fun.
The Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Super Conference is coming to Dallas, Texas, February 16, 17, and 18 in 2018. If you know of a better way to get the latest insider knowledge about crypto, to hear directly from the top minds in this field, to interact personally with 800 fellow crypto lovers, hodlers, investors, miners, traders, developers, and founders, then I'd like to hear about it. If you don't, then you don't want to miss out. Register today for the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Super Conference. Go to bitcoinsuperconference.com and register today as a super early bird to get the lowest rates on tickets and hotel rooms. That's bitcoinsuperconference.com.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review, to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.